All right, Sean, I'm gonna show you how to do that arpeggiator in Max. So you can just click Max here, create a new patcher, and we're actually gonna use something slightly different than what we did this afternoon. So we're gonna use JavaScript for this because it's so much easier to deal with lists. So to use JavaScript, you create this object here called JS, and create some JavaScript files. So I'm going to call this arp.js. And I'm going to double click this, and Max is going to bring this editor here. And I'm going to save this file called arp.js on my desktop. Okay, and there it is. And one of the things that we do right from the start here when dealing with JavaScript in Max is to use this property here called AutoWatch equals 1. So so that Max, whenever we save this JavaScript file, Max is going to update this JavaScript object here. And then let's go ahead and save this to the desktop and call this Arpeggiator. Okay. And okay, so now let me just push this to the side a little bit, make this window a little bigger because this is where we're going to do most of our work. And we're going to also use Max's console, so Command M for Max window, or actually rather Command Shift M, so that we can have this Max window right here. All right, so we're going to need to print things to this console here to see whether our JS file here is working correctly. So that's why we bring up this console here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create some MIDI input here. So just a node in object should be fine. And so let's test and see if this is working. Play some notes. All right, so notes are working just fine. You can't hear obviously anything because there's no note out there, but let's create one so that we can listen to ourselves. And all right, so we're on the money here. Good. So the way this works is we're going to go ahead here in our JavaScript side of things. We're going to create an array that we're going to call, so var for variable, and we're going to call this notes. And this array is just going to be a new empty array. Okay. And we're also going to create, so we can put a number of things inside this array. And the way we do it is by creating some method here, some function in JavaScript. So I'm going to create this function, and I'm going to call this note in. Right? So note in is going to take some pitch and some velocity as arguments. Right? And this is going to make more sense pretty quickly, and is going to do something to our pitch and our velocity. So the way we send to this function here a pitch and a velocity and address this particular function here is by creating a message here. So a message called node in, which is the same name as this function here, with two arguments, $1 and argument $2. So this message here, node in, is going to take a list of $1 and $2, two arguments, which are going to be pitch and velocity coming from here. So now we need to pack our node in object, okay, so that it will send a list. And then to this list, we're going to prepend the word node in. And then we're going to send to the JavaScript a message containing first the word node in, which is going to tell JavaScript that it's this function that we want to call, and then pass the two arguments, pitch and velocity. So for now, all we're going to do is print to the console the note and the velocity that we're getting. So we're going to say post. So post is a method that prints whatever whatever we want to the console. So I can say, for example, post and then hi. So double quotes here are for strings, for tags. So hi, Sean. And oops, this is not what I want. Hi, Sean. And then whenever I play a note there, it's going to print hi, Sean to the console. Obviously, this is not what we want. So we can say post and pitch and then plus to concatenate these strings plus velocity plus, say, perhaps either a new line. So to get a new line, we use this character here, backspace and plus velocity, and then another new line. So we keep things clean. Okay, save this file, and then now when we play a note, it's going to print the note number and the velocity. And then when I release the note, it's going to print the note number with velocity 0. Okay, so we are communicating max to the JavaScript. We're doing fine. So now what we're going to do really here is to add notes to this array. Okay, so this is the array of all notes that are currently playing that you're, right? And then we're going to use this to control our arpeggiator. So the way we're going to do this is use a conditional statement, because I don't want to add notes here if the velocity is not, if the velocity is 0. If the velocity is 0, I want to remove notes from this array. So what I'm going to say here is that if velocity is not equal to 0, okay, then I'm going to add something to this array. So the way we do this in JavaScript is we get the array nodes, right? And we say push. Push, and what are we going to push onto this array? The pitch value, right? And that's all. Now, in case this array is 0, in case the velocity is 0, so else here, I'm going to actually go ahead and put a comment here. Wait, it's always a good practice to comment the things that you do. So else velocity is equal to 0. So this means that we're turning off the note. Okay. So what happens if don't worry about this error right now. So what happens if the velocity is 0? So if the velocity is 0, we're going to remove that note from our notes. So we're going to say notes splice. Okay, and we're going to splice one entry, and we need to give an index. So we're going to get notes index of whatever pitch we're getting, right? And we're going to remove one entry at that index. Okay, so syntax line 6, and oh, instead of in, it's if velocity is not equal to 0. Okay, cool. And also we want to create a method to empty our array, so to reset everything. I mean, I don't actually, you know what, I don't think we need it, but should we ever want to reset things, we can create a new function here called reset, and this will take no arguments and just, you know, set this array of notes to an empty array. Okay, and then right here on the max side of things, you can just create a message with the word reset, and it's gonna empty whatever array you have there. Okay, nice. So when you send a message without any arguments and the word reset, so Max is gonna search for a function inside of JavaScript that can be called by this name reset. Okay, cool. And now also something else that we want to do here is create 3 outlets for our. You'll see why we're going to create 3 outlets later, but the way we do this is by giving the word outlets equals 3. And then when we save this, you'll see that Max is going to create 3 outlets there, right? So now we have 3 outlets. Okay, so what we're going to say here is that outlets are indexed by from 0. So out of the very last outlet, which is outlet number 2, so the first outlet is outlet 0, the second is 1, and the third is 2. So we're going to say that outlet 2, which is the last one, we're going to send the length of this array. Okay, so we're going to say notes dot length. Length -1. Remember the -1? We spoke about this this afternoon. The reason why we're going to say -1 is going to become clear now, because we're going to drive the arpeggiator with, you should have guessed by now, with a toggle and then a metro, and we can give this an initial argument of 200. Okay, and then we're going to have a counter. For now, we're going to have this little counter, right? And then the counter, we're actually interested in telling this counter up to which number it is supposed to count, right? So, but counter indexes from 0. So let's say if we have 4 notes playing at any given moment, the length of this array is going to be 4, right? But we want to tell counter to count up to 3, because it's going to count from 0. So it's going to count 0, 1, 2, and 3, and that's the 4 items that we need. So that's why we give it a -1 here. Okay, this is pretty simple. So out of the very last outlet, which is outlet 2, we send the length of this thing, right? So now we should be getting out of this counter here. If I stick an integer box here, if I have 3 notes pressed, you should be counting 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, oops, whenever we have the metro on. So 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. If I play, say, I don't know, 5 notes, it's going to count from 0 to 4. Okay, so right, so this part of things is working pretty well. Now we need another function. So this is the part that creates an array here of nodes inside of JavaScript. Now we need to retrieve the MIDI note number at any particular index that we're getting from this counter here. So the way we're going to do this is by creating a new method called note. So I'm going to go ahead and create here a method called note. So function note, right? And note is going to take 1 index as an argument. And with this index, we're gonna search our array, okay, and retrieve the note, the MIDI note number that is currently at that index, okay, and send it back. Send it out of an outlet. Okay, so we need to test, however, whether there is an object at that index, right? Because there may be some error, and we're asking for something that is out, that is not in the list. So we use this conditional here. So if there is something there, so if there is some note in notes index, okay, then we're going to ask for something. Then we're going to say send through outlet 0, which is the leftmost there, just whatever note we have. So notes index. So this conditional statement here prevents Max from, sending undefined messages. So now when we need to call this method here in Max, so let's give it a message here called note, okay, and then $1. It takes only one argument, which is the index that we're getting out of this counter. So whenever we send this, okay, oh, it's saying no function node. It's because we didn't save this yet, right? And as soon as we save it, Max is gonna start to chill, right? And then it's gonna, now we can stick an integer box out of the very first outlet here, or outlet 0, which is where we're sending out this thing. And then if we play, I don't know, 4 notes, it's gonna give us the MIDI note numbers, rather than indices. Okay, cool. We're doing fine. So now, really, all we need to do is create, say, a make note here, right? So now we can disconnect this note out from here, and by only creating a simple make note and give it, say, 100 velocity and 100 milliseconds duration, we can get that note from Max and just start sort of arpeggiating. So we can do. All right, so this is not very interesting right now, but we're gonna make it a little more interesting. So right now you must be thinking, well, what about velocity? Okay, funny you should ask. That's why we have this outlet here for velocity. Okay, so let's think of a way of capturing velocity within the JavaScript here. Well, we're getting it from here, right? So what I'm going to do basically is create another array just to hold all the dynamics in our arpeggiator. So let's create a new variable here called dynamics. And this is going to be a new array, but this array, right, is going to contain 128 elements, one for each MIDI note number. Okay, and obviously when we reset things, we're going to want to reset the dynamics array too by creating a new empty array, an array of 128 undefined things. Okay, and then whenever we add a pitch to our array of notes, we're gonna say that the dynamics array, at that pitch MIDI note number, so 128 MIDI note numbers, so at index given by that MIDI note number is going to be the velocity that we're getting. So this way we have so we keep updating for that particular pitch MIDI note number the velocity that was given, right? And if velocity is 0, we don't have to do anything. So instead of velocity 0, I'm going to say handle node off. Okay. Cool. So the way we're going to do this is send. So if we have if there is a note at that index, right, we're going to send that note out of outlet 0, and out of outlet 1, we're going to send the velocity. Okay, and the velocity we're going to retrieve by taking the dynamics array and getting the index that is given by the MIDI note number, and the MIDI note number is given by this index into the nodes array. Okay, and it's important that you send first the velocity, because the velocity is because of Max's order of operations. Otherwise, if you send the note first, then Max is inevitably Max is going to send out this outlet before sending out this outlet. So the order in your code here has to mimic the order from right to left that is inherent to Max. So I'm going to comment this because this is important. Mind Max's or so here reflect Max's order of operation. Okay, left to right. Sorry, right to left. Okay, so now instead of this hard-coded value here, right, we can just get the velocity from here. So if we play, say, a C, we start playing, say, an E, right, and we play a very loud note. That means maybe this. Am I getting what I want here? Oh, I didn't save. That's why we can't hear the dynamics yet. Okay, should be good now. So a very soft E and a very, loud F sharp. Even softer E. Right, so now you have dynamics too, which is a very cool thing. So if you have, say, I don't know, a bunch of notes here, very soft on top, say, and then you have something a little louder down below. Okay, cool. So also you might want to, say, at this point, create a little dial and inspect this dial to change the speed at which you play things. So let's say that we're going to go up to 1000 milliseconds with a minimum value of 20 milliseconds. Okay, and cool. So now we can give this value to this metro here and also send this send speed to our other object there, to our make note. So here we receive speed. So now we have a way to make notes quicker. So okay, cool. So, but now everything is sitting on the same octave. So let's find a way to change the octave, sort of in a random fashion, right? So I mean, there's a lot that we can do with this. This is just like the simplest arpeggiator in the world. But so I'm going to create another variable here called randomizer. And I'm going to say that randomizer is a number. And randomizer is going to be 0 if it's off, and it's going to be 1 if it's on. And the way we set the randomizer to 1 is by a function here called function randomize. And this is going to take one argument, the value of the randomize, and then in here we're going to say that so obviously in order to call this function you need a message here sent to the js.arp, so a message saying randomize, and since it has one argument, randomize $1, and it's going to be 0 for false and 1 for true. So all we need here is a toggle. All right, and we're going to send this to the JavaScript, and so that we can set this property here, randomizer. So we're going to say that the property randomizer, whenever we call, we turn the randomize on there, is going to be equal to whatever value that we give. If it's 0, then it's going to be false. If it's 1, it's going to be, or 2 or 3 or 4 is going to be true. Okay, nice. So what we want to do now is down here, right? So if you say that if, however, the randomizer is on, if this is equal, if this is equal to 0, this if test is going to fail. If it's non-zero, then it's gonna execute the code inside this block here that we're giving our JavaScript. And so if this thing is on, so we're going to create some random octave. So var random octave is going to be equal, well, whatever this is going to be equal. If this is false, then we don't want to randomize anything, and all we have to do is, you know, do it as we've been doing before, and just send out of outlet 0 the note at that index in the notes array. But if we do have the randomizer on, then we're going to create some random octave. So to increase an octave in MIDI note numbers, you add 12. To decrease an octave, you subtract 12. So what we're going to do here is create some random number here. So the way we do this in JavaScript is say math.random. So math.random is going to give us a number between 0 and 1. Okay. So what we are actually interested in, so we're going to actually multiply this random number by 8. So now we have a number between 0 and 8. And we're going to go ahead and subtract 4 from this. Okay. So now we have a number between -4 and 4, roughly. Okay. And then we're going to finally multiply the whole thing by 12, right? So by 12, because we're dealing with MIDI note numbers. But so we're going to range between -4 and +4 octaves. And the way, so what we want to output this, we want to sum this to our MIDI note numbers. So it's going to be this notes, at that index plus some random octave. Okay, sorry, the octave was camel cased, and this should be pretty good. Let me see. Line 33, random octave is math random times 8. What am I missing here? Oh, okay, -4. So we're missing a, yeah, okay. And also, we want to take the floor. So we're going to say math floor. We want to take the floor of that number, right? Because we don't want, we don't want decimals here. We want just an integer value. So it's the floor of this random number between 0 and 8 -4. The whole thing times 12. Okay, let's see what we get from this, and let's close the patcher here, and then I'm gonna just play a C major chord. Perhaps, 4 octaves is too much. Perhaps we can do 3 octaves, say. Let's see. Let's see if this is a good idea. All right. Do we still have a problem here? And okay. So let's see. All right, so all these other parameters here, the speed, and whether you randomize things or not, you can also obviously automate. And when you do that, then Bob's your uncle, and it's all good. So, okay, Shawners, that's it. That's a very simple, very easy arpeggiator in Max. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you later, man.